How many four-letter words can I use on that?
Trying to switch to a double. Cheddar is driving. Nothing yet. Takedown. Michael Cheddar.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
Hale trying to sink him. He does. Maximus Hale the fall.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of On3 Wrestling. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me today to preview the Big Ten tournament coming up this weekend in Evanston is my man, Malik Amine. Malik, appreciate you hopping on the program once again. You're going to be out in studio in Chicago doing a lot of Big Ten tournament coverage this for this weekend. It's the best time of the year. We talk about the 3 days in March coming up in Philadelphia in a couple of weeks, but the Big Ten tournament is a mini NCAA tournament of its own.
Yeah, man, it's having wrestled in it, watching it, growing up, it really is like the mini NCAA tournament. Wrestling at all levels, man. It's just, to get on the podium there is crazy. You get some places where you have 11, 12 allocations in the Big Ten. So, I don't expect anything less this year. It's going to be an exciting tournament.
Yeah, 3 of the weight classes out of all 10 have at least 10 allocations, which is, it's bonkers when we really think about it. 87 total allocations for auto bids for the Big Ten tournament this year out of the 287 pre-allocations, only 43 at-larges. It just goes to show you that, once again, the Big Ten just goes deep at every single weight. I mean, we could have national finals previews, and we'll dive into it in a second, but this tournament, it just seems like, you haven't wrestled in it. It's just such a grind for 2 days. It's almost like I've talked to some coaches and wrestlers that are just like, yeah, sometimes this tournament's actually harder than NCAA.
Yeah, in a couple weeks. Yeah, it really is. Like I remember, wrestling there, 2 or 3 times, and you get your first match as a guy that's ranked 10th in the country, or a guy that's ranked top 5 or top 8 or whatever. There's really no easy match unless you're obviously the 1 seed. But even after that, I remember wrestling guys like Anthony Ashnall coming out of the second round. So it's crazy. Who eventually was the national champ. So it's really grueling, especially like you said, it's a 2-day tournament. It's not like, it's a layup. Every match is going to be a tough match. Even the guys that, maybe have an 11-11 or a losing record are going to come out to wrestle because they know they're wrestling for those allocations. So, it's always a tough tournament, and, the 2 days is a grind. And like you said, the NCAA tournament sometimes might be a little bit easier because you might get, a guy from another conference that hasn't really wrestled anybody. But, you look at the Big Ten, 84 is a great weight class where you look at, 10 guys on the top 10. It's nuts. So, and some guys aren't even, going to go to the NCAA tournament just because week after week they've had to wrestle, a top 10 guy. And it really is like, Shade Sparks always says, it's, the premier conference in wrestling. It really is.
Without a doubt. So let's dive right into it. Let's not waste any more time. 125 pounds. It goes 9 deep in terms of the allocations this year. Matt Ramos, the number 1 seed. He's undefeated. Caleb Smith gets the number 2. So those 2 guys get the buys. And, of course, 3 through 14 on the rest of the bracket have to wrestle in that first round. The top 5 rounded out by Dean Peterson, Luke Lildahl, and Joey Cruz. So the way I look at this weight class, Malik, just like nationals, anybody can win it. It just seems like 125, so open and random. That Pandora's box was kind of open a couple of years ago when Ramos himself knocked off Spencer Lee. Then it's like, wow, all right, you know what? Anybody can win. And we saw last year the randomness of it as well. Ramos, a national finalist, then goes to the blood round, falls short of the podium in 2024. But he's on a tear this year. He's got to be the favorite. But it just seems like any of those top 3, top 4, top 5 guys, if they're sitting at top of the podium on Sunday, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, 125 is always that crazy weight class, right? You don't really have a front runner like 84, like Strachey. You could go down the Penn State weight classes, but it is really a wide open weight class. And obviously Matt Ramos and Caleb Smith, heading the pack. And, you don't really have a Spencer Lee anymore, right? Nobody's trying to chase that number 1 guy. And you could make an argument that it's Matt Ramos, but it's going to be super interesting to see how that tournament plays out. And now Ramos being the number 1 seed, how he handles that. Obviously, he said last year, fell short of the podium after having a huge high, and in 2023 at that Tulsa tournament. And it's going to be really, I think, one in the trenches. A lot of these matches, you saw Dean Peterson take out Lila Dollar this year when they said it paid the Cal tax, right? And then goes and gets pinned by McCrone, right? So It's a crazy weight class. 125 is always fun to watch. A lot of scrambles. You can always make an argument, to keep folk style wrestling, right? Because it's just a bunch of rolling around. But it's really going to be, again, like one in the trenches. I don't think anybody's going to walk through that weight class unless somebody has a spectacular tournament, and which could very well be, a guy like Matt Ramos just puts it together, Caleb Smith puts it together. But I really do think you're going to see a lot of close matches. You're going to see some upsets. If I would have to pick somebody, I really, really think that Caleb Smith can put it together. I've watched him all year, and had that close match with Lyle Dahl, and I think he's just been wrestling so well since then. So if I was going to pick a guy to win that 125 weight class, I'd say Caleb Smith from Nebraska.
Hey, solid pick right there. He gets the first round bye, so he gets one less match of a grind to win the tournament. Again, 9 allocations: Ramos, Smith, Pearson, Lil Dahl, rounding out the top 4 of 125 pounds. Just one quick thing on Matt Ramos. When you look at a guy like that, who, as you just mentioned, the highs of the highs a couple of years ago in Tulsa, he knocks off Spencer Lee, pins him in the semifinals. It's one of the greatest upsets in college wrestling history. Everyone knows the magnitude of that type of win, and then he ends up falling short in the finals. It was a tough pill to swallow for him. Against another guy in Pat Glory for Princeton, who was
no slouch, by the way.
No slouch by any means, and a guy who's a 2-time finalist himself, and it had happened to run into Nick Suriano the year before. But when you're a guy like Matt Ramos, it's like you pull off something like that, you still fall short of the ultimate goal, and then you have to come back the next year. It's like, all right, now you're the guy here because Glory just graduated. Now, okay, it's Matt Ramos and everybody else. He falls short. What goes into a kid's mind like that when he goes from the highs of 23, misses out on 24, but then he's come back with a vengeance here in 25. Again, unblemished record, has pretty much rolled through everybody he's wrestled now, and now he's once again the guy to beat.
Well, here's the thing, it all resets at the Big Ten tournament. You saw it last year, with Ramos's performance at the NCAAs. Had a fantastic year. Was coming off a high, wrestled really well, and then gets upset at the Big Ten or NCAA tournament. So it's always tough. And you watch it happen year after year where a guy's having a really, really good year. Spencer Lee, now he's on the opposite side, right? He's the Spencer Lee. Everybody's chasing him, and it's a lot of pressure. And I think going back to last year, Ramos is now experiencing it. Has experienced it before, so it's not like he's new to it. But again, it's the Big Ten tournament. It's not an easy tournament. You see good guys go down all the time. You see guys with undefeated records go down. It really is going to be a tough, another tough environment for Matt to rise to. It's just, can he keep up the consistency is really the question. And I do think he answers the call. I know I picked Caleb Smith because I just think Caleb's just such a great wrestler, and he's done super well all year. And I love that Nebraska team. But again, I would not be surprised if Matt Ramos won the weight class. But it's just, can he rise to the occasion is the real question after having just a crazy, undefeated crazy year and a lot of tech falls, right?
Yeah.
What happens when you have to wrestle the distance in a close match? Have you been tested after having close match after close match? Because I think a lot of these guys that you've seen all year are going to come to wrestle. And it's not, you're not wrestling at home, or you're not wrestling, out on the West Coast or the East Coast. You're wrestling, in Illinois, right? And there's no home crowd, right? It's just it's everybody from the teams that you've wrestled all year.
Without a doubt. We'll move ahead to 133 pounds. As far as the allocations are concerned, this is one of those weight classes with 10. So this, again, another random weight class. Anybody can win it, it seems like, nationwide. But it goes very deep in the Big Ten. Drake Ayala, the number 1 seed. Lucas Bird is the number 2. They'll get the buys. Then rounding out the top 5, Braxton Brown of Maryland, Braden Davis of Penn State, and Dylan Shawver of Rutgers. And I'm looking at this weight class. Ayala, now the new number 1 overall. Ryan Crookham is out for the postseason. He's been out for quite a bit. So to be expected, everyone just basically shifts up 1 in the national rankings. Got to think Ayala's the favorite. Lucas Bird has come back off an injuries from last year to this year, where he has looked the best he's ever wrestled. And I was a guy who said preseason, I'm like, I got to wait to see how he wrestles. Well, he's wrestling really well. Brown's on a tear this year. And then, of course, you throw Davis and Shawver in there, Malik. Those are 2 guys who won the Big Ten title just last season, and they're the 4 and 5 at this deep weight class.
Yeah, and then 133 is just like 125. You kind of really got to treat it the same way. You don't really have that front run anymore. Vito Ruja's gone. Ryan Crookham's out for the year. So it's really it's going to be another weight class where again it's going to be the trenches, right? It's going to be these close matches, and Drake Ayala is no stranger to them. You know, he's wrestled so many of them, and sometimes come out on the bad end of it. But if you look at this year, man, he's won a lot of those close matches. He's flipped them, and for him to do that is super impressive. And I think that you can see Drake just elevating his wrestling every time he wrestles. It's really fun to watch. Sometimes you see him, he's not really on his offense, and kind of backs up and wrestles into other guys' positions. But when he's firing and he's slick and he's just wrestling in all positions, he's so good. I mean, he's the best guy at 133, no question. So again, I hate to say it and reiterate the point, but it's just like being able to show up. Are you going to be able to do that at the Big Ten tournament? Are you going to be able to do that at the national tournament? Obviously, a returning national finalist, right? How does he handle that pressure? So a lot of these guys are chasing him, right? He's the number one seed. It's his spot to give. It's his championship to lose. But him and Lucas Bird, right? Super close to the match this year. Both guys have been on fire. So we'll see if that's the rematch. You obviously have a lot of good guys in that field. Obviously you have Braden Davis. You have Shawver, like you said, the returning Big Ten champ. So we'll see.
Without a doubt, that whole top side of the bracket, just based on the way the pre-seeds are right now, you got Ayala probably taking on Rini or Bouzakis in the quarterfinals. A Shawver Davis quarterfinal is insane.
Yeah.
So this weight class just goes so deep. This is why it gets 10 allocations. Even Tyler Wells of Minnesota, who's really good, he's the 10th seed in this bracket. So I'd probably say the way Ayala is wrestling, he's the number one guy for a reason. He's probably going to be the favorite here. But again, you look at that top side of the bracket, landmines all over the place. 141. This one is very interesting to me just because of the top two guys at this weight class with Bo Bartlett and Jesse Mendez of Penn State and Ohio State, respectively. 7 allocations at large here for the 141-pound weight class. To me, it's probably the top two guys, Malik, when you look at who's going to make the finals, and it's like, okay, who's going to win the rubber match, and then do they have a rematch in the NCAA finals or semifinals in 2 weeks? But, guys, you can't overlook Brock Hardy of Nebraska. You alluded to Nebraska before, how that team is just so solid this year. And Vance Von Bauer leveling up after having an All-American finish last year for Minnesota. He has really jumped levels in his wrestling. They rounded the top 4 seeds, but in the end, to me, it's still Bartlett, Mendez, and then you get match number 5 between the two of them on Sunday evening for the finals.
Yeah, and those guys are the front runners. They had that match right in Columbus where Bartlett squeezed it out, and it's just you look at a couple of these matches like Hardy too. Like Hardy took Bartlett right to the ropes, and it's just about getting over that hump, right? It's great to have close matches, but you got to win them, right? And neither of the guys in the field besides Jesse Mendez has taken out Bo Bartlett. So it's it's one of those weight classes where you obviously have the two front runners, and it's going to be the rubber match. And you've seen Mendez get the best of them. Not recently, obviously, but prior to that last meeting. So the Big Ten tournament is going to be I think a good testament for Jesse or Bo. And obviously you can't overlook the other guys, right? You have Hardy, like you said. You have Von Bauer's having a great year. It's just being able to, Jesse, again, super high octane offense. You didn't see that much offense in that match against, Bartlett when they wrestled in Columbus. And I think that ended up hurting them. And Bartlett, again, is just such a hard guy to score on. And shoot, man, if you got 30 seconds left to wrestle a guy like that, good luck, man. Good luck taking him down. He's one of the most crafty wrestlers I think I've ever seen in the sport. So I think 141, like you said, you don't need to hammer it home. It's those top two guys, and the other guys sniffing an upset. So, and then when you go to the national tournament, right? One of those guys is not going to be the number one seed. You have the undefeated, Andrew Alvarez out of Northern Colorado, who will most likely be the number one seed. So for both of those guys, it's super important because, Alvarez is no slouch, right? Returning national champ, technically, right? He didn't wrestle last year. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's when we get to Philadelphia for that one, how they're going to sort out those top 3 guys is going to be insane. And speaking of top 3 guys, here at 149 pounds for the Big Ten tournament, 8 allocations at stake. Shane Van Ness from Penn State is your number 1 seed. Kyle Parker from Iowa is number 2, and Ridge Lovett rounds it out at number 3. These guys have just beaten each other all year long. It's a round robin. I guess you could have made an argument for any one of them to be the number 1 seed, and you would have been like, "Yep, okay, that's right." But the winner in all this has to be Shane Van Ness because he gets the 1 seed. And rather than having Parko or Lovett on his same side of the bracket, he'll get a guy in Dylan D'Amelio who he's familiar with. And, of course, that top side of the bracket is where if you're one of the top 3 guys, you only have to wrestle one of Parko and Lovett now. So Shane Van Ness, to me, the ultimate winner of this bracket. I think
For
he does
sure.
get to the finals, but as far as who he faces, I really couldn't tell you. Lovett has his number, but Parko might have Lovett's number, and we're kind of going all over the place here. So this weight class, to me, any of those top 3 guys will be the winner, and you know what? I won't be surprised at all.
Yeah, and I don't think you can overlook Dean D'Amelio, man. He made a fatal mistake, I think, in that match, and going and watching it back and calling it back, it's just one of those positions where you just wished he, focused a little bit more on the fundamentals, and I think he would have squeaked out, that match. But it's just like you said, it's not in Columbus, right? We're in Chicago. It's a neutral site. The Penn State guys always rise to the occasion. It's more about the other guys on the chart rising to the occasion. Penn State will always have their guys ready. I mean, I see it year after year. It happened when I wrestled. Shoot, that was 6 years ago. So nothing changes. Cal Sanderson will have those guys ready to wrestle. It's just about these other guys on the bracket, like you said, Ridge Lovett, Kyle Parko, Dean D'Amelio. You can go up and down. I think I covered the top guys at that weight class, but I really do love Ridge Lovett, man. He has the experience out of every guy, right? Shane Van Ness has never been in the finals. Right, he's never gotten to the finals. Ridge Lovett has that experience. He's went through a grueling bracket. He's beat the best guys. Right, he's done everything you need to do. Sadly, ran into the best wrestler I think that in my era, Yanni Dika Mihalis. Right, and really the unfortunate way of wrestling of where you probably would be a national champion as anybody else. Yeah. So Ridge Lovett has that experience. So it's just about being able to hone in. It's not gonna be at Carver Hawkeye either. Right, so it's. You go and look at Ridge and, what he's done this year and, just the way he's been wrestling. And if anybody can win that bracket, and I'm talking about the whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's Ridge Lovett. And I think, you have guys like Kyle Parker, who's definitely capable, has been stopped a couple times in the semis and quarters, and the same with Shane Van Ness. But the only guy that really has the experience of taking that and beating guy after guy, like tough guys, right? Andonian, Tariq Wilson, and making that final. I mean, he's really the only one that has that experience, and fell short obviously last year. But I do really think that 149 is Ridge Lovett's weight class. I think this is his year.
Yeah, Ridge Lovett, big time experience, and you mentioned that match between Van Ness and D'Amelio. That was a 4-2 match just a month ago. So, like you said,
it's craziness, man.
It could be very close, and these are the top 4 guys for a reason. 157 for the Big Ten. Once again, 8 allocations. And by the way, the lowest amount of allocations for any weight class in this conference is 7 at 140. Yeah. Just goes to show you how deep every weight class is. So another.
I had 12 1 year. Sorry, I had 12 1 year.
Oh
yeah, that was crazy.
I actually think I recall that. I forget the exact year, but I do recall something like that around what was it? I think like 149 or 157.
Yeah, it was actually now I think of it as 13 allocations. Yeah, it was actually the years at Michigan State. And it was Rutherford. Yeah. It was Rutherford Sorensen final.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, that's right. So if it was at Michigan State, that'd be 2018. Yeah, can you imagine?
God, man, that was a grueling weight class.
Who knows if we see that again? 13 out of the 14 getting.
Hey, shout out to Ronnie Perry, man. He made the finals that year. That was crazy.
That's right. Yeah. You're right. I remember that now. I mean, can you imagine?
Is he a Jersey? He's a Jersey guy, isn't he? Is Perry a New Jersey guy?
I believe off the top of my head, I have to double check. He might either Jersey or PA. I remember he's a Lock Haven guy, and then I almost want to say he was a PA guy. It's killing me off the top of my head. I believe he went to a PA high school. Now I gotta look it up. I was gonna drive me nuts. I think it was it had to have been. I don't think it was Jersey. I'm gonna get fact checked later, and of course it's
he went to Bergen.
It just goes to show you that these weight classes are so deep, and then of course you get to the NCAA's, you can still have a run like that. So 157. Ethan Miller is the number 1 seed for Maryland. He's unbeaten this year. Number 2 is Tyler Kasak, and then rounding out the top 4, Antrell Taylor from Nebraska and Ja'Cory Teamer from Iowa. So again, another weight class where you're just like, this is really deep. You could see a champion coming from the 4 or 5 spot. Number 5 is Tommy Askey from Minnesota.
Yep.
Now Miller gets the number 1 seed because he does have a win over Kasak. It was via injury default after Kasak had to pull out. I believe that's when he was concussed. That was about a month and a half ago at this point. Now, if Kasak, to me, Malik, is at full strength, if he's healthy, he's the guy to beat in this weight class. And almost the same can be said for Ja'Cory Teamer. I know he's been dinged up. He's been sporting a big shoulder brace, and I think even a knee brace this year. But when he's as close to full health as possible, he's arguably the best guy in the country. And then it's like, oh, yeah, don't forget about Antrell Taylor and how solid he is from Nebraska. So this weight class, the semifinals, especially the seeds hold, will be sight to behold. But it just seems like Kasich, if he's healthy, might be the guy to beat. And that's no disrespect to Ethan Miller, who I would say definitely earned his number 1 seed this year being undefeated.
Yeah, it comes down to health, right? Are these guys healthy, right? Tyler Kasich having concussions myself, like who knows, man? All it takes is one ding to the head, and there goes your season. So it's just a tough situation. And you said Keemer, his shoulder's torn up, and then God bless Sam Sasso. What a incredible career he had. Not being able to get the nod. I mean, I think he pulled out himself, which is super. A man of class. Can't say enough about him. But it's just. It's really coming down to health at this weight class, right? It's who's going to be healthy, because it's great to have Ja'Cory Teamer at full health, right? But he's not, right? And Tyler Kasich, same thing. I mean, whether Penn State fans like it or not, another hit to the head, man, and that could be your season. God forbid, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But it's just it's crazy going into the end of the year with injuries, because you really don't know what to expect. Like, obviously everyone can't be Spencer Lee and they can't be Yanni and have a torn ACL and make it through the tournament. Like, that's just, you can't ask a guy to do that. But again, like you said, it's really going to come down to who's going to be healthy, who's going to, be able to wrestle, 7 minutes every single time. Because, once you get to that quarter semifinals, you're seeing a really good guy. It's not some guy with a losing record. So, you're going to look at 157. And again, I'm not going to be surprised by anybody. I mean, even if Ethan Miller does it, because, you go look back at 2023, he took Shane Van Ness to the ropes. I mean, he's a really good wrestler. And he's undefeated for a reason, and Clemson has done a great job with that program. So unfortunately, it was just a circumstance that it was a head injury for Kasich, and that's how he got the win, and that's how he's going to get the number 1 seed. But again, no discredit to what he's done this year. So I this is one of the weight classes where I couldn't tell you who's going to win it, and I can't pick a wrestler. And if I would say Kasich, but it's like, what happens if he gets dinged in the head again? And then he's out of the tournament, and then probably out of the NCAA tournament. So it's going to be a really, really, really tough weight class to market, and not market, but to pick, because it's just going to come down to, who's going to be healthy throughout those 2 days. And I really can't answer that question.
That's one of those where it's like, you know what? I'm just going to sit back and I'm just going to watch the action.
To be honest, you could say, okay, if Teamer was healthy, right? And Kasich was healthy. Again, Penn State's going to say everything that, he's fine. Listen, I've had 5 concussions, 6 concussions, whatever you want to name it. No, I'm serious. You're really never fully healthy until you have like 3-4 month recovery. I mean, if you get hit again, I mean, your brain is the most precious asset. And I hope to God that Penn State's taking it seriously, because I've just seen so many cases where it's just been the opposite of where you get CTE and you get, brain bleed and all these traumatic things. And just, I hated to see that injury, because I saw it on Friday. I remember in the studio, and I was talking to Rick and those guys. I said, listen, he's hurt. He's looking around. He's doing this, and being in that position, right? You're looking around. You don't really know where you're at, trying to figure it out. And obviously wrestled that match against Zach Matten and finished that out. I mean, I would have done the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But then he comes back and gets hit by Ethan Miller, and then just falls right down. I'm like, dude, man, it's just pull him out. And they made the right decision, right?
Yeah.
So it just is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be in the right mind? And it's easy to wrestle through a shoulder injury or a knee injury, but a concussion that's tough, man. You're not in the right mind. You're not in the right space.
No, not at all, especially in a physical sport like this. He did come back. He beat Devin Capato from American, got the pin in the first period and during their season finale.
Come on, no, man. That's you can't compare that. Yeah,
not compare. All I'm doing
Wrestling
is
American is not.
He did come back. So for what it's worth, he was able to wrestle 2 weeks later. But I'm with you. Hopefully he is.
Yeah, but you're wrestling. I mean, no discredit to American, but American's not Ja'Cory Teamer, right?
Yeah.
That's not, you're not wrestling Tommy Askey. You go up and down. You're not wrestling Ethan Miller. Those matches are going to be tough matches. Guys are going to, headbutt. I mean, hate to say it, but they're going to headbutt you. They're going to club you. They're going to, they're going to push your head in the mat. They're going to lift and return you. It is not, it's the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
It's
a war.
You're not wrestling at the Edinburgh Open, right?
Yeah. It is a war. You are not wrong about that at all. 165, 9 allocations. Can we just say Mitchell Messenbrink and then just move on?
Yeah. Listen,
is just so darn good, man. He's the number 1 seed, undefeated, Hodge Trophy contender. Mikey Caliendo is the number 2 seed. Christopher Minto, an impressive freshman from Nebraska, is number 3. And then right from Michigan, Malik, Bo Mantanona, he is really, really good. I think Michigan's got a superstar on their hands in a couple years with Bo. But you look at those top 4 guys, really, really good. But this is basically, especially nationwide, this is Mitchell Messenbrink. And then, everybody else. And
Yeah.
this is Mitchell Messenbrink's world, and we're all just living in it.
Yeah, Mitchell Messenbrink might be the contender for 74 kilograms for the U.S. team. He's that good, and it's not like you want to train through the NCAA tournament and the Big Ten tournament, but it's really trying to slow down Mitch Messenbrink. He's just so fast, he's so lethal, and if anybody has a game plan, maybe it's that guy down in Oklahoma State knowing how to wrestle him. It's just the fact he's like, right, Cameron is just being able to slow him down, right? Because you go look at the matches between him and Cameron, not to get off topic, last year, and obviously you had that one at Michigan, but then you kind of closed the gap a little bit at the NCAA tournament. It's just, and I don't know if there's a secret sauce, because Mitch Messenbrink has just gotten so much better, in my opinion, since last year. But it's really being able to slow him down, and he doesn't have the best technique. I'll say that he doesn't, but his pace and his attack rate is something that I've never seen before. And you might get exposed on the international level, and you can do better. You can get better on that. It's not really a concern of mine for him, transitioning to the next level. But for everybody else, it's just being able to stop it. And it just seems like he just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And you don't have David Carr this year, right? You don't have a guy that can wrestle like that, especially super athletic. So, in my opinion, man, it's very hard to see anybody beat Mitch Messenbrink.
How does a guy do that? Because you look at the, where was he at? Cal Baptist for what, half a year? Then he comes to Penn State. I guess he was always this really good, but he kind of broke out last year for people who are, not paying attention outside of, the middle of the country. He's really good last year, and then he's an NCAA finalist. He comes up short, and then he pushed the pace on David Carr. We know how good David Carr is, being a two-time national champion. But when you see the levels that Messenbrink has jumped from last year to this year, how does a guy do that? I mean, simply, you mentioned the pace, which, I mean, again, I haven't seen anybody match his pace pretty much ever, other than a guy like David Carr last year who ended him out in the finals. How does a guy do that and get better at a pace like that? Is it just simply he's just in better condition than everybody else? Is it mental? Is a combination of both? This is a guy that was, given, the American GOAT, arguably, Jordan Burroughs. Jordan Burroughs was getting frustrated with him because he was constantly in your face. I mean, how does a guy like Messenbrink do this?
Well, it's an easy adjustment, right? He's got what every coach wants. He's got the pace, right? And he's not going to quit. And now you just have to make the technical adjustments, right? And no discredit to Mitch. He's a great wrestler, but his technique has, to be, let's say, Olympic gold level, right? Jordan Burroughs level. You want to talk about not Daichi Takatani, but Sidakov, anybody you want to name, he's got to make that gap in technical ability. And I think that's kind of what hurt him last year, is where, David Carr kind of outclassed him a little bit. Yeah. But, you see it this year from last year, and you go and watch him, wrestle at the U23s. It's just, he has just gotten so much better technically in such a short time. It's just like his ceiling just keeps going up. And if I'm a 74 kilogram guy waiting to think it's my spot, well, guess what? Knock, knock. Mitchell Messenbrink's at the door. So I just think technically he's gotten so much better. And it's, being able to be a little more patient in positions, not trying to rush it, not trying to go too spastic. And it kind of reminds me of, a long forgotten Jason Nolf, right? Everybody forgets about the greats now. I mean, not the Penn State people, but everyone else is. Jason Nolf did the exact same thing what Mitch Messenbrink did, but his attack rate was a little bit lower, but his finishing was so much higher. And I think that's where he needs to make that jump, is where if you want to be, and obviously the NCAA tournament, he's going to be the number one seed. He's probably going to win it. But if he wants to make that jump to be an Olympic champion or to be a world champion, you're going to have to lower your attack rate, but also, make sure that you're taking the right attacks. Because I think, you go watch the match against Iran that he wrestled, is that, it kind of made him pay. And you can't shoot 100 times. Miles had to learn this lesson. I had to learn this lesson. Everybody did. So, not to get, crazy off topic, but, it is crazy that you're talking about a guy that's probably going to walk to the Big Ten tournament, national tournament. Yeah. It's how is he going to fit in to win that at the next level? Kind of like Carter Strachey, right? Can he do what few American wrestlers have done, is win the NCAA title and then win an Olympic gold medal? Because, whether we like it or not, 2028 is coming around the corner, right? Yeah. It's going to be, it's already 3 years away, right?
It's already 2025. I mean, I feel like just yesterday we were talking about the Paris Olympics.
He's got 3 years to really make that gap, and I do think he can do it. So
we'll get closer to Strachey in a second. 174, his old weight class, of course. For the Big Ten, it's another weight class with 8 allocations. The number one seed is last year's 157-pound NCAA champion, Levi Haynes. So again, he's a guy from Penn State, favorite. This is where Penn State, you're talking about all the one seeds they have, but their true hammers are probably from 65 and all the way up. That's the better half of their lineup, at least in my opinion. Number 2 is Carson Hartzler, who's had quite the comeback season off a lot of injuries over the last couple of years. He's the 2 seed for Ohio State. Lenny Pinto from Nebraska is 3. Patrick Kennedy is 4. And then just to round out, Clayton Whiting from Minnesota is number 5. Very interesting weight class. Because I would imagine a lot of people are going to pick Levi Haines. Now, if you get a Haines-Hartzler final, people are like, well, maybe Hartzler is the guy to do it to knock off Haines. He wrestled him really close this year. A couple other guys have wrestled Levi Haines quite close this year. But the way Hartzler is wrestling this year, it just seems like, okay, only Haines is above you right now. And despite the knee brace, despite any other dinged up, parts of your body right now, Carson Hartzler seems like he has returned to form that made him an All-American when he was a freshman just a handful of years ago.
Yeah, and I've known Carson since he was a kid. I used to go to Moran camps all the time. Moran taught me a bunch of stuff that I use today, and super grateful for him. But Carson really has had so many injuries that have plagued his career on that ceiling. Right? He is national champ caliber. I mean, no question. It's just about being healthy, right? He's had the knee brace, that his shoulder's been messed up, his elbow, you can name it, everything down his body, right? But Levi Haines, again, another guy that he goes up to 174 and just beats the brakes off everybody. It's like you really can't, you can't make this stuff up. And Carson obviously is right there with him. You saw that at the Ohio State match, but again, it's not in Columbus, right? It's in Chicago. You're not going to have 100,000 fans, or not 100,000, but I'm exaggerating, but thousands of fans cheering your name. You're in a gym where it's Nebraska, Penn State, Iowa, you got everybody. So it's a whole different environment. And obviously, how people are. They're definitely going to be rooting for him. Mostly people root against Penn State, but it's because they win so much. But it's it's going to be, again, I don't think anybody can beat either of those guys. I think that's probably the final we'll see. No discredit to any other guys at the weight class. It's just Carson and Levi are at that level. It's just Carson, can he make that jump, right? It was a takedown last time. Right. And it's just, again, just a small mistake. And I guarantee you him and his dad and the coaching staff are working on that same position crackdown, whatever. So it's 74, and the Big Ten is going to be those two guys. And obviously at the NCAA tournament, we'll see. Obviously you got Hamidi and you got O'Toole. So, pick the one you want to run into, right?
I don't think anyone wants to run into anyone.
Hamidi was. He should have won the Big Tens last year. He made a huge mistake. But
that's going to be quite the bracket at NCAA's. It'll be a good one here, obviously, with Haines and Hartzler. Pinto's excellent. Patrick Kennedy being Iowa's rep this year. Obviously, he's really good. Whiting's been solid, and my guy Jackson Turley could be a bracket buster.
Yeah, Turley, man, he's just got to catch you.
It's one last ride. If he catches you, he's gonna get you. So
Turley just needs to get to the NCAA tournament, man. That's where he thrives.
Like,
the Big Ten. Hey, listen, Turley. Don't. Hey, if you're listening to this, man, don't worry. Just get to the Big Ten tournament. I know you'll get on the podium.
Looking for that second spot on the podium for the for the first time since 2021, where he made a tremendous run on the backside as a freshman. So looking forward to that one. 184 we alluded to with Carter Starachi. The Big Ten does have a good amount of allocations again with 8, but it's Carter Starachi and everybody else. And I would be remiss though that this bracket does have a good amount of great matchups, and I think matchups that people want to see. Everyone's going to pick Carter Starachi to win the Big Ten. I would say 99% of people, if you're not a UNI fan or you're in the UNI program, you're going to pick Carter Starachi at NCAA's as well over a guy like Parker Keckheisen. But in the Big Ten, he's number 1. He'll eventually go for his 5th national title, which is unprecedented, obviously. But this weight class is pretty deep. Max McAnally, who I'm a huge fan of from Minnesota, he's unbeaten. Silas Allred from Nebraska is number 3, and then Gabe Arnold. I know there's been a lot of talk about Arnold and obviously the true freshman Angelo Ferrari in that Iowa room, but Arnold gets the nod, of course, for the postseason. He's a top 10 guy for a reason. He's the number 4 seed, and then Jackson Smith, number 5 seed for Maryland, down a weight this year, and even last year's Big Ten champ Edmund Ruth, who was at 74 last year. He's only the 6th seed here, up a weight class this season. So another deep weight class. To me, I would say we're going to get Starachi McAnally. That's a matchup I just desperately want to see, but we can't overlook the fact that we might most likely get a Starachi Gabe Arnold semifinal, which I think everyone in the college wrestling world wants to see in a match now.
Yeah, and you just never know, right? It's wrestling. It's the beauty of it. Arnold has had a couple close matches. Obviously just a week, 2 weeks ago, lost to McAnally in overtime. But
Mhm.
I know everybody wants to see Angelo Ferrari, right? Everybody's
Yeah.
like, man, why don't you pull his red shirt? He's one of the guys that Carter's gonna hate me for this, but I'm like, dude, he could beat him. I mean, he's that talented.
Yeah.
Obviously you look at his brother, probably gonna be the front runner at 197. So, obviously we're not going to talk about that probably until next year because they're not going to wrestle him. But
Mhm.
you obviously have that. I think now the hype has kind of died down of that jawing between them.
Yeah.
Obviously they threw out Ferrari and kind of look like an idiot because he didn't wrestle, and it's not Gabe Arnold's fault, right?
Yeah.
The coaches made the right decision, obviously, because it was such a good match. Maybe they didn't. Who knows what happens at Big Tents? But yeah, you're probably going to see a McAnally, Strachey. I'm not going to be bored by this weight class just because you have a lot of good guys. You're going to have some guys who are going to be all American that you're like,
Yeah.
wow, I didn't expect him to, and you're having guys that are like, man, I really thought he got on the podium. That's just 184 every year. It's
Yeah.
been like that since I can't even remember. So it's always that weight class where you have guys that are just undefeated. They're beating everybody, and then they go wrestle somebody from Army or Navy or one of these other schools and get upset. I mean, you see it all the time, right?
Yeah.
84 actually has had the most, I think, one of the, it's like 125, right? Drew
Mhm.
Foster won the NCAA title back when he beat Max Dean, right?
Yeah.
And Max Dean beat Miles Martin, right? You see upsets at 184 all the time. Strachey's actually the guy that has stopped that the past couple of years. Well, he's at 74, and then Aaron Brooks. I mean, you can switch them around, all the Penn State guys at 184 and 74. But 184, in my opinion, it's going to be those two guys. Strachey is a different beast when it comes to postseason. He just crushes everybody. So it's just going to be about McAnally being able to keep it close and try to steal one at the end. So
Yeah, he certainly captures the Penn State magic each and every season. So 197 as we wrap up the Big Ten Conference preview here. 10 allocations for 197, another deep weight class. Stephen Buchanan from Iowa, he's unbeaten. He's the number 1 seed. Josh Barr, what a season he's had for Penn State. He's number 2. Yeah. Jacob Cardenas in his grad year with Michigan after a great career at Cornell. He's number 3. Then Isaiah Salazar rounding out the top 4 from Minnesota. So to me, this one's tough, and I picked Jacob Cardenas actually to win the whole thing back in the preseason. I was like, you know what? Michigan's got a little magic with the upper weights. They always get those guys to level up just a little bit more towards the end of the year. I stuck with them mid-season. I didn't budge from my pick. He is the 3 seed. He lost in tiebreakers to Josh Barr, so hence why they are at 2 and 3 respectively. But Buchanan, I'd be dumb if I didn't mention how good he's been this year, and a guy who finished 3rd at NCAA's last year for Oklahoma. Yeah. I don't know what's in the water. I don't know what's going on at Iowa, but for some reason, Stephen Buchanan looks like he would pin himself from last year with the way he's wrestling this year. So to me, Buchanan's the favorite, but you can't overlook Barr because Barr wrestled him obviously as well as he could, and of course Cardenas for how good he is. But it just seems like Stephen Buchanan's going to be waiting for a guy like Barr or Cardenas in the finals on Sunday.
Yeah, and again, you're not wrestling at Carver Hawkeye. You're not wrestling at Bryce Jordan Center, right? It's a neutral site. So we'll see. Again, Penn State, again, I'll say it, they rise to the occasion. So does Iowa. So I'm still going to go gut feeling Buchanan. I do think that Cardenas gets the better Barr this time. And no discredit to Josh. It's just, I've known Josh forever. He's a Davison guy. Cardenas has really not really, he's struggling to turn it on, right? And he's capable, right? He's, 3-time, 4-time All-American at Cornell, has been in there with everybody, has been, close with the top guys, monster on top, right? Jersey guy, machine. He checks all the boxes. Just, is he going to be able to do what Lucas Davison did and Austin Gomez did last year? It's like, even if you have a bad Big Ten tournament, are you going to be able to turn it on when it comes to NCAAs? And I think that's a question for all 3 of these guys. And even for AJ Ferrari, this is a 125 situation all over where you really don't have a guy that's the front runner.
Yeah.
You haven't had a guy that's besides AJ Ferrari that has been in the finals. So and that was man. I don't even know how many years ago.
It was 4 years ago. It was
2021
tournament. Yeah.
And has had some injuries and, gotten that car accident. He looks great this year, but I think 197, obviously Buchanan has just leveled up, right? He looks so much better than he did last year. And he's definitely the number 1 guy in the country, in my opinion. But again, Cardenas, they haven't wrestled each other, right? So we'll see. I really don't know how that's going to pan out. Obviously, Barr, squeak by is just fatal mistake, right?
Yep.
No discredit to Josh Barr. He wrestled an amazing match, but Cardenas, you'd like to see him drop down the ankle and just give up the stall call.
Yeah.
Give up the stall. I mean, it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But that's not a match where you're like, oh, Barr's a 2 seed. It's gonna be 1 versus 2. It could go either way. I just think Jacob Cardenas has, he has the veteran experience. He's been there before, but you can't count on any guy from Penn State. So I
No.
think you're going to see a Cardenas Buchanan final. I can't say who's going to win that because it's just a guy, 2 way different styles, right? One's a brute, one's super slick. Likes to attack the ankles, but Buchanan just runs right through you. So it's going to be an interesting match to see. I really, again, a weight class where I can't tell you who's going to win it. Out of those top 3 guys, yeah, it could be either of them.
Yeah. Buchanan's absolutely a freight train. So we'll wrap up here with heavyweight Malik Amine with me here on 3 Wrestling. And heavyweight, I think we know where this is going. We think. So, but again, this weight 10 allocations. So Big Ten heavyweights, they're putting on for NCAA's. A third of the field is going to be Big Ten guys, which is unbelievable. Gable Stevenson, of course, number 1 seed from Minnesota. Greg Kirkfleet from Penn State, last year's national champion. He's the 2 seed. Josh Heinzelman has really turned it on late from Michigan. He's looked really, really good in his grad transfer year. He gets the 3 seed because he edged out Nick Feldman of Ohio State, who's number 4. And then according to the pre-seeds right now, Luke Luffman of Illinois and Yaroslav Slavakovsky of Rutgers, they're both number 5 right now. I would imagine Yara gets the 5th seed because he beat him head-to-head. We have to wait for the official brackets, of course, at the time of this recording. But it just seems like it's Stevenson and Kirkfleet finals. Everyone else, okay, go have fun. Go wrestle for 3rd.
Yeah, and then it's even like, hey, congratulations for making the finals for Greg Kirkfleet. and it's no discredit, right? I mean, it's wrestling; anything can happen. But when you see a guy like Gable Stevenson come around, he reminds me of like a Zane Rutherford, right? Where you had Sorensen give him a couple good matches, and I can't remember his name from Oklahoma State, but he had close matches, and then he just the senior year just crushed everybody, right? And I think Gable's at that level, right? Where he's a mess and brink, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just, is he going to wrestle, right? Is he going to be done after this year? Is he going to go on the Olympic level? Obviously Mason Paris has been the guy at 285. So can he come back and, get to that level, for the Olympics in 2028? So it's not, again, like Carter Stracci, right? It's not overlooking the NCAA tournament and the Big Ten tournament. It's what's your ceiling? Or can you do the impossible again? Can you win the Olympic gold medal? Right, because I think everybody can say today that Gable's probably going to win the NCAA title, right?
Yeah.
Barring anything crazy, obviously you saw the Spencer Lee situation, but I love Spencer Lee, but he's not Gable Stevenson, man.
Yeah.
Gable Stevenson can play any sport at any level. I mean, you saw him try out for the Buffalo Bills. Like, dude, the guy is a machine. I really got to, probably give a stink to the WWE for not letting him wrestle and kind of screwing him over a little bit, but helped Mason a lot, so I guess I got to thank him. But
Gave him a quick pathway.
Yeah, helped Mason a lot, but regardless, right? It was the wrong call. The WWE probably should have let him wrestle, but I do think it's going to be Kirkfleet, Stevenson. I mean, Stevenson has looked way better than he has in the past years. I mean, he looks like a guy. He looks like a final form of every Super Saiyan that you can buy and just put him in one. Right? And well, I mean, you saw Keeter. Keeter was like laughing. He's like, you kind of gotta appreciate. Obviously you want to be a competitor, right? Of
course.
But you kind of have to appreciate. This is one of the. You'll never see another Gable Stevenson again. And if you do, dude, you're the luckiest man on earth, because I just don't.
Yeah,
I mean,
it happened twice. Yeah, that'd be unbelievable.
Well, he's gonna play football, right? Gable Stevenson should have played football, right? He would have been, if he would have came out of high school and done it, he probably would have been in the NFL, winning the Super Bowl. And if he would have been in the octagon, he'd be a champ. Like, he picked wrestling, right? And we're so lucky that he picked that. And I don't think people are gonna realize that until he's gone. I mean, what he's done at every level, and how he wrestles and how he entertains the crowd. And it's like so surprised about how the WWE dropped him. But he is a personality. He's a great human being. He's a great wrestler. I mean, and he's a fantastic athlete. I mean, he's everything that you'd want representing the Big Ten and the NCAA for a wrestler. And really to watch him this year from the prior years, dude, he's like, he's like Mitch Vesenbrink, man. He is at a whole different level, and you can even see it. I mean, when he's not teching guys, like, damn, dude, he didn't tech him like at heavyweight. I'm like, what? You're crazy, man.
It is bonkers. He hasn't lost since 2019. Only 2 losses to
Star. Yeah.
Just one guy. I know we've had basically a 2.5 to 3 year gap between the last time he stepped on the mat prior to this year. But his closest match this year, 13-4 major decision over Ohio State's Nick Feldman. Otherwise, he's teched or pinned everybody. And you mentioned Ben Keeter. He teched him in the first period. And as you mentioned, Ben Keeter was just like, you know what? I'm just going to laugh and I'll appreciate this one day. But
well, maybe Gable will. Maybe Gable will when Keeter's playing the NFL.
yeah, without a doubt. So Stevenson's my pick. And then, Malik, before I let you go, and again, appreciate your time this morning. I know you have the hashtag underneath your name right here on the pod, Save CSU Wrestling. Cleveland State, of course, announcing they were going to drop the program. I just first, I appreciate you putting that up because, again, I think too many times the sport maybe gets behind programs a little bit too late, and then it's like, okay, we have to save this program now rather than support them in the immediacy. So at least we should spread the word that Cleveland State, a good program out there in Ohio, a program that really should not see the end of its days, a program that should be continuing in a great wrestling state like Ohio.
Yeah, and you also saw like the government get involved there because it's just such a travesty. These universities, and I don't want to go off in too much of a tangent. They take wrestlers for granted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all about football and they're all about these other sports. But these are the guys that become multimillionaires that donate to your university that that are great representatives of your program. They're not going to go on and talk bad about your university when they graduate. I meet so many wrestlers, and to plug Tim Johnson, like the world needs more wrestlers, right? Yeah. And if you're Cleveland State, you're making a bet on the future generations of probably the next multimillionaire, billionaire donating to your damn program. So it's not about wrestling at this point. It's about what wrestling teaches you and, the values it instills in you. And you can meet wrestlers from any program. They're all successful in whatever they go into. And it's such a travesty to see it happening time after time because of money, right? And the last thing, I ever want to say is, shame on the university, but shame on Cleveland State University. Charging these guys more money and then canceling the program, it's ridiculous. And like you said, we shouldn't have to wait till these programs start getting canceled to get behind them. We need to get behind wrestling as a sport. We need to understand that it's in danger. With this NIL stuff, and might be just come a conglomerate of these big schools. And I know these big schools care about wrestling. So it's not, you can't blame Penn State, Iowa, and all this NIL stuff, Michigan, you name them. It's not their fault. They're just playing the game. But it does hurt these smaller schools. And you really have to, as a sport and longevity of the sport, have to get behind them before it's too late. Support the Arkansas Little Rocks, right? Support the Texas State, right? That's I can't remember the small Texas program that Grant Lee's heading. That's great stuff. But we also have to appreciate the programs that we have. And we don't want to have another Cleveland State that you've had so many successful alumni like Stipe Miocic, Georgie. I can't remember Georgie. He wrestled. He's like a huge wrestling influencer, right? Mm-hmm. He wrestled at Cleveland State. I remember him. He was tough.
Yeah.
Right. Cleveland State has had tough wrestlers. It's not like some program that hasn't had the success. They've had the success. It's just it's such a travesty seeing it time and time after again. Eastern Michigan, Old Dominion, right? Mm-hmm. These great historical programs, and the administration they just have to do better. And you can't blame the coaches. You can't blame the wrestlers. It's just a very tough situation. And just if any of these people are listening to it, they probably aren't, but wrestling is such a great sport. It is an investment in your future. Most of these guys will be future entrepreneurs, employees, running Fortune 500 companies. You're investing in the future of not only wrestling, but the donors to your university. So if you cut these programs, you're kind of SOL, down the line. Seriously. I mean, a lot of these guys are going to become your most successful alumni.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well spoken. I don't have anything to add to that, so we'll end it on that note. That's the way it should be done. So, Malik, thank you, my man. Appreciate you joining the program. Good luck in studio.
Appreciate
looking
it.
forward to seeing your coverage for the Big Ten tournament. And then hopefully I will catch you out in Philadelphia for NCAAs and talk to you ahead of time there too as well.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Nick.